Internet is shaking, y'all. Golden Mike 112, James K. Erdt. James Erdt, do you know why we've had 112 Golden Mics?
You tell me.
Because you cannot cancel me, son. You cannot cancel me. I produced this show, baby.
We're up for Mr. Mark.
It's Monday. We're with James K. Erdt, visionary, James Erdt, luminary, James Erdt, evolutionary, and we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, joy and its application in the real world. What happens when we start vibrating with joy and that becomes a contagious thing? James got some cool things going on with a ranch. He's doing some things with publishing. Dude's just a dynamo entrepreneur, and we're going to go and talk about that more in a little bit. For those of you who haven't met me yet, my name is Mark Cordone. I'm the Chief Disruptive Officer of the Joy Revolution. I'm the founder of Make Money Coaching, but more importantly, I'm a positive psychology coach, which means this. How happy are you today? Just the feeling you get in your gut. How happy are you? And then the second thing I have for you is, how much are you living life with full purpose? So that's how I'm going to start it off. James, how happy are you? And how much are you living life in full purpose, baby?
Yeah, buddy. 10 out of 10. Living life purposefully full each and every moment, because that's the only moment we got.
It is the only moments we got. And speaking of only moments we got, James K. Erdt is the bomb. They're showing up. Melanie, nice to see you.
Rockstar. Melanie, what's up?
So for those of you who are feeling like James today, I know it's a Monday, and for so many people, it's uncool to say that they're happy. But for those of you who are happy and living life at full purpose, James, give me a heart, baby.
Yeah,
give me a heart. Hit those hearts, baby, whether you're watching live or on the replay. How do you make that heart beat over there in Canada?
on this Be Live platform? Is that what you're asking me? Because
how do you make hit the heart on the Be Live, baby?
I got you.
Truth. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of people think that positive psychology is 24/7 shits and giggles. Skittles always raining from the sky, Taco Tuesday every day. We're happy all the time. No, that is not what positive psychology is about. If you're always feeling happy, you're one of two things. You're a sociopath or you're dead, baby. Life is about the ups and the downs and the all-arounds of life. And joy is your capacity to feel that, to love it, and to write your story around that. Now, for those of you who couldn't give us some hearts because you're like, you know what, Erdt? You know what, Cordone? I was happy last week, and you know what? I don't know. My team lost in the playoffs, and I'm pissed off right now. I'm unhappy. That's cool. Or you're like, Erdt, I was in a relationship for 30 years, or I was in a job, and I was passionate about it. And all of a sudden, I woke up, and I'm not passionate. I don't get as much meaning out of it anymore. That is part of your journey. Your heart beats just like James and I. Just sit back, enjoy the journey. Let us give you a couple laughs and entertain you, and give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you're alive. Okay? Now, here's the last one. I got to see this one because Erdt's like, what is he making him hit all these emojis for? It's the delay, remember, Erdt, so that you can share it out.
That's it.
Now, here's the last one. In the years of studying, joy and one other thing have led people to success more than emotional intelligence, more than IQ. And that is, whether yesterday was shitty or amazing, if you know that today is going to be even better than yesterday. That's called optimism. And that's had a huge correlation with people's successes. If you are feeling optimistic, there's another button down there. It's called the wow face. James and I are going to show you how to make the wow face. James, what does your wow face look like, baby?
On these emojis? Because I've never used this platform, dude. There's no.
I just want you to make that wow face for me, baby.
My wow face. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, that's right, baby.
Wow. I lived the wow. My title actually on my business card is the chief architect of wow of Dynamo Entrepreneur.
I love that, man. I love that. And let's get into Dynamo. Let's get into what you're doing with the ranch. But I first want to start out with this, man. You and I met in Toronto, and I was curiously drawn to you, and we were surrounded by people, and I couldn't ask. So now I get to ask in my platform. What's your story, man?
Well, first off, I was jealous of your hair, and that's why I was like, "Who's your barber, man? Hook my ass up, man." Right? You were sitting there with another gentleman with purple hair, I believe. Right? You guys were like alone doing your own thing. I'm like, I need to sit with those guys.
And you said that. You came up and you're like, I want to sit with you guys.
That's right. That's right. I got over the forward comb over and got rid of it all. So it's a good day in the bald world, because you don't need to look in the mirror anymore because you know what you look like. So, have you ever considered shaving it off?
I have. I've had it shaved off, man. Okay. I've had it shaved off for a couple years, man. And yeah.
I think
mohawk. I might have to do a mohawk when I go up to Canada and see you, bro.
I love it.
I might have to do a mohawk. But I do have to get back to this question, because there's something, I don't know, man. There's something about you that is, there's a dynamic story there. I know it's there, and we don't have to tell it here if you don't want to. So if I ask the question, what's your story? How would you answer that right now in this day, this Monday?
Well, first off, I'm not a sociopath, and as far as I know, I'm not dead. So to add to the first comment, sharing about being happy all the time and the difficulty around that, I'll debate that, because with the emotional intelligence that we have and our emotional guidance system, which basically says, hey, this sucks, it's very low resonating, get out of here, or hey, those are like fear, despair, grief, shame, very low resonating emotions. We have now love, compassion, abundance, joy. Joy is true north. And the really, really cool part, Mark, is that we can pick our emotion. Mark can't make me angry. Only I can allow Mark to make me angry. I can blow him like, wow, happy faces and love all day long. So I choose joy each and every moment of each and every day. Even if a close friend passes, or I have a bad problem in my company, or something that needs to be solved, I have the ability to choose joy. And when I choose joy, I move through it much faster.
Now, when this idea of joy as choice, a lot of people have thrown out. We're talking about Viktor Frankl in concentration camp, saying, "Dude, you can take away every single freedom except my freedom to choose happiness." Now, for you, has that always been a value that you've had, James? Like, has that always been a value you've had? Joy as choice.
No, I'm 46 now. I met a lady when I was 26 named Janice Grease. She was an awareness mastery coach. So I was a professional in the fitness space, nominated for Canadian Trainer of the Year, and I did a lot of stuff in the fitness sector. So she came to me to work with the body and necessarily the mind in regards to nutrition and fitness training, et cetera, for her clients. And she was dealing with energy. At the time when I was 26, The Secret hadn't even come out yet. And she was generally teaching the law of attraction, like attracts like. So I was in a place of, drug addictions at the time and attempting to get out of the life of crime and gang activity, et cetera. I didn't get out until I was 30, where I actually overdosed on cocaine way back in the day. I've been 16 years clean, 17 years clean on February 23rd. And that's part of my story. Ooh. But to answer your question, 20 years.
20 years. And so this idea of moving from joy to this place of choice, that came from your meeting 20 years ago.
Yeah, I actually went into business with her, and we went into all the high schools, and we were sharing about, body, mind, and spirit in an energetic way to get around the non-denominational need for public schools. You can't really go in and talk, Christianity or Buddhism or whatever, right? It's best to speak in energy terms, so all the kids are involved.
Now, I do want to go here for a second. You talked about a life-giving event, overdosing, right?
Yeah.
And so much of a either if you want to call it addiction or drug use, has to do with the feeling of lack of choice.
You got it.
So were you in one domain feeling a lack of choice and then preaching choice in another domain?
No, I
Okay,
did one and
this
then
was a different epoch time.
one and then the other, right? So,
Okay, one then the other. Yeah. Okay.
maybe I'll rewind a little bit until
Yeah.
When I was 15, I was a good student. I was a great artist. I had a few girlfriends. Not all at once, of course, Mark. Not all at once. And I really played a lot of sports. I was an extreme sports athlete. I did everything from snowboarding, skiing. I was on my way potentially to driving Formula One race cars. I was practicing, and on my way to fitness modeling. What happened was I was getting bullied back in the day when I was in grade 3. I personally am German, and I grew up in an Anglo-Saxon, very English city, London, Ontario. And, my name is James. My brother's name is Klaus. So what he went through in high school, being obviously German as Klaus, my parents didn't want that for me to go through. I went to the exact same high school, and they called me James after James Bond, a nice British name. Right. So then basically, in grade 3, there was a few incidents, a lot of incidents, actually, with 2 gentlemen that were in grade 8 that decided to take it out on me for what happened in World War II. I knew nothing about politics. I knew nothing about World War II. All I knew was that I had a shiner here and there, and I was getting snow jobs and shoved into lockers, etc. Right. I couldn't defend myself at the time, and I didn't necessarily share this with my family until I was 30 years of age, when I made peace with it myself and understood the power of forgiveness to get rid of that poison in my veins that I carried from the time that they went from grade 8 to grade 9, which is when I stopped seeing them. Long story short, I took the long path to school, etc. Common bullying story. No problems until I got into grade 9. Then it started again with the football players. I was that guy with the mohawk and the earring, and the football players don't really like those guys carrying the skateboards. However, their girlfriends did, and that caused a lot of problems. So I got involved in that situation.
But not all at the same time again.
Not all at the same time, right? So then, I ended up joining a group of undesirables, a gang, for lack of a better word, and got involved with gang-like activity. And once you get in, it's very difficult to get out because you know too much. So I went from being that, good kid making a few silly choices to now rolling with guys that were badass and really becoming the punisher of those that were punishing others. And I did that from 15 until 30. It escalates, right? So by the time I was, 15, 16, 17 years old, I was already involved in crime, heavier drugs. Started out with lighter stuff like marijuana, hash, maybe some acid, lube, etc. But then it grew to like Special K, cocaine, crystal meth, you name it. When I was 17, my girlfriend at the time, she was the girl that all the guys wanted, and I got her, a beautiful girl. So it adjusts your judgment in a way, to make the pretty girl happy. And she ended up signing a check from her father, $1,000. Went to go cash it, committing fraud, obviously. Got away with it. Second time, she went for 10 grand, and she's like, go do this, go do this, go do this. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Let's go to Mexico, party, do a lot of ecstasy, have a lot of fun. And I'm like, hey, what the hell? Couldn't hurt. Guess who was waiting for me at the bank? Her dad and the police. So charged as a young 17-year-old boy attempting to impress the pretty girl, I ended up in prison on my 18th birthday. And to this day, the only regret I have is my mother's eyes tearing up as I'm hauled off to prison, not even being able to give her a hug. So at 18 years young, in the school of criminology, mixed in there with Bloods, Crips, Hells Angels, Outlaws, you name it, like you grow up really, really fast. So coming out of there, nothing rehabilitative, nothing rejuvenating, nothing recharging about that experience. You do make different and undesirable connections that could lead you down another path of pain, and or pleasure, right? It really depends on your own will to kind of move forward and out of that. I was 18, so, I was just in the process of graduating from high school, so I didn't actually get to graduate. I graduated from a halfway house coming out of prison. So I got my last English credit and I ended up graduating. Fortunately, I only had 1 credit left. Many kids that I know, they're in a much worse situation, dropping out in grade 9, grade 10, grade 11. I do work with teens now. using my story to empower them. Long story short, I went from, all these hard situations, a lot of violence, a lot of crime, all the way up until the age of 26 when I met this young woman, and the shift started, right? And it was basically a shift towards learning more about energy, universal laws, applying them to my very own life, and then becoming a guide when I was 30, when I got out of it completely.
Now, you're 26 years old. I mean, ostensibly, you go to you go to prison at a. I'm gonna mute myself for a second because I hear myself. So ostensibly, you go to prison at an age where you're a young adult, right? That's the age where you're beginning to build up resilient skills, skills to help you in the long term. You come out, and I heard you say there wasn't a lot of rehabilitation that, or a lot of growth that happened there. It sounded like the mean streets and up in there. You're in it for your own. How do you move from sort of a person who's been or how do you react when you're a person who's been in a lot of hard situations to meeting someone who's helping you shift? Like the first time you started hearing about law of attraction stuff or law of or about joy, were you like, this is a bunch of fucking bunk, dude? Like I lived the life, that's a privilege to have that. Tried living what I like. What was your reaction at that time?
Well, we're creatures of habit, and we're creatures of comfort, and it's very difficult at times to make that shift because it feels uncomfortable. When I work with my personal training clients at the time, that was the shift. Actually, I went from joining a gym at the very base level. I'm talking like making $20 an hour, coming from running a cocaine empire. Right. So having gone from that to $20 an hour, I was on my way to freedom. Money didn't matter anymore at that point. It was more about, salvaging my soul and making it through this in order to give back now on a global scale. So at 26, I became a personal trainer, based with the tools that Janice had given me, started applying them. And, it's difficult in the beginning. Any change is difficult. However, with my personal training clients, I always mention to them, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing enough to change, right? So I really applied that. I really focused on getting uncomfortable, learning about progressive overload, everything like from my muscles. Your muscles develop when you focus on a different direction or more weight. It's the same thing with anything in your life. Your heart develops that way. Your brain develops that way. Our experiences develop that way. So I went from being a master trainer to an elite trainer, to an elite plus trainer, to a fitness manager, to being nominated for Canadian Personal Trainer of the Year, to being nominated for Canadian Fitness Manager of the Year, to breaking the record for the highest revenue generating trainer ever in the history of the company. I did that with 3 more companies. Then I got into fitness modeling, launched Fitness Star Model Search right across Canada and in India. Then I opened up a magazine that I launched based in the same vehicle. Then I opened up a nutrition planning company based in the same vehicle. And I had a social network of fitness models supplying talent for Nike, Adidas, Tatika, Lululemon, all natural fitness models, no drugs. And I started the success chain moving upwards, the success train, and became a rocket ride to the point where I sold my first successful business and took that money and built Dynamo with it.
Talk to me about where joy comes into all of this. Was joy part of it? Because that is a fast change, man. That is a fast and accelerated growth piece to it. And today we are talking about joy. So I don't want to make the assumption that living in joy helped that, but did it?
It did. I actually believed in the power of joy, the empowerment of joy, for lack of a better word. I even included it in my incorporation title. And at the time, my entire umbrella company was called Joy Zone. Joy being the highest emotion that we can feel as true north. It's the guide. It's the North Star. It says, hey, we're feeling this beautiful bliss. Like even when Mother Teresa went out and did her work, what's in it for me? Well, she got this little dose of joy to say, hey, you're doing the right thing. This is our divine guidance stating that, you know what, you are on track. When you're feeling miserable or you're feeling shame or guilt or anger, that's poison in our veins. So I got the book, Ask and It Is Given, Learn How to Manifest Your Desires by Esther and Jerry Hicks. Are you familiar with them?
Yes, Abraham.
Abraham. So the late
Yeah.
Jerry was, writing down what Esther was channeling, and I really took their work to heart, and I started, putting my own spin on it, and then, working with, people like Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dyer, the late Wayne Dyer. He
Great Wayne,
all-time favorite. Like, Wayne is responsible for a major amount of my positive shift. So I started sharing these books with others, and then I was like, oh, wow, I could start doing courses. So then I got Joy Zone Incorporated, more involved in the personal training sector, and I was implementing joy in my training regimen with fitness models. So I was training world champions, cover models, Nike models, like the top level fitness models. And a big part of their training regimen was the ability to apply joy, especially for the ladies that go through these big hormonal shifts.
Sure. Now, for the audience, how do you distinguish between joy and happiness? Because a lot of people use the words intertwined. And do you make a distinguishment between the two?
Not until now. However, what's coming to my mind would be, happiness is kind of like motivation, and joy is kind of like inspiration. And if you were to tell me the difference between those two, what would you say, Mark?
I would say that happiness is more along the lines of the things that you feel with goal attainment. Mm-hmm. You're happy from that standpoint, but joy is really that living in a state of bliss. And so it's like a level up from happiness.
You're right. I'd agree.
I don't want to get too esoteric, but I think that you can live in joy without being happy some days. You can just, you're still joyful. The world might be falling apart around you, and you could be holding your partner's hand and being like, we're going down swinging, baby. You're
rolling in joy, and then these little happy doses, it's kind of like nitrous or turbo boost.
Absolutely. And you know what? This may be the first time this is ever happening, James, but I have a guest that
has a question. Frau Klein, wie geht es dir?
Hi. I have never been allowed, or I haven't asked, to come into the Golden Mic, but when I knew it was you, I was like,
oh, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to see you. Share our energies virtually, at least.
Yes. So I have a question for you.
Sure.
I was listening to the show, and you were talking about, choosing joy. And I know sometimes people see that as being a really difficult thing to do. Like, how can I actually choose that? And so, because, you do things with the body and you have the mindset, I was wondering if you could share with people how you maybe have an integrated awareness of that choice to help people understand that they have the same one.
I'll make it really simple for everyone. As Nike says, just do it. I actually, let's take for example, okay, I was training all week last week. My body's really sore. I came off 3 spinal surgeries over the last 10 years. I'm on my way back to stage competing as a fitness model against the 20-somethings, and every day that I get up, sometimes, I jump out of bed, and other times I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sore, I'm so tired, I don't want to get up. I say those 3 little words to myself, just do it, and pop, out of bed. Go right to the gym, want to do something in regards to choosing a particular emotion, boom, just do it. Now, humans are habitual creatures, right? It does take time. It is that uncomfortable space that we go into until joy becomes a habit. I stay in joy because it's habitual. I stay in the excellence, paradigm because it's habitual. So that's just how I roll my life. It wasn't always that way.
Right. So you make really quick pivots. Your awareness is like almost instantaneous, and you make that choice. How about when you started? How long did it take you to be able to make the pivot, and when did it become the new habit pattern for you?
self-discipline has a lot to do with it. You know, they say, you know, some people say, like a dear friend of mine, Robin Sharma, he says it takes 21 days to pick up a new habit, right? So obviously when you go into picking up a new habit, whether it's eating better, or training differently, or selecting joy as your predominant emotion to live with and live in, it does take that time period in order to do it. So to set these little reminders, to have reward system, you know, many human beings are incentivized by reward, even if they are created by ourselves. Take, for example, it could be a cheat meal, something as simple as a cheat meal. I go 6 days on, 1 day off. So I get 3 cheat meals a week. That would be my reward. I make it through the self-discipline of 6 days in order to have that 1 day on Sunday where I can eat an entire tub of Haagen-Dazs. Wow. James made it. He made it through 6 days of joy. He's going to treat himself right now. And that sinks in now into your heart and into your head and say, hey, you know what? There's more Haagen-Dazs down the road.
Nice. I like that. I think that's a motivational factor. But I'm hearing that there's structure, and that until the choice becomes the new default, you structure and you engineer your life in such a way that you're prompted to make those choices easier until it becomes the norm.
Habitual. You're right. It does take time. I mean, I work with a lot of troubled teens. That's my lane now. I'm in the at-risk youth sector. I'm at a point, you know, I've had the toys. I've had a good life. I've dedicated the past 6 months and for the next foreseeable future to these teens. And I'm working with a lot of kids that have attempted suicide, that have come out of gangs, that are attempting to come out of gangs, you know, and they're in a very dark place. To really put tools and processes together, how to work with these individuals on an individual basis, because nobody is quite alike. However, we're all wired the same. We're all wired. Take, for example, we're on the playground when we're 3 years old, right? We don't have, there's no racism, there's no prejudice, there's no, you know, sexism. It's everybody's just hanging out together. So inherently, we're all wired the same. And what I've learned is that the emotional guidance system is the absolute same for everybody. And that's tied in directly to your emotional intelligence. So once we start to become more aware that the emotional guidance system is our internal GPS to put us on track towards joy, that little tool there, that they understand that these individuals have the power themselves to make the shift and the change. I work with some kids just recently, 6 of them that actually, they're in a place called Synapse. Janice and I, we went in and they actually murdered their parents, either both parents or one parent. So obviously, these are young kids. These are minors. You know, what happened there? What went on there? And the only way I could get through to them is say, hey, little Joey, I don't care what happened in the past. I care about who is Joey right now. The only person coming to save Joey is Joey. The only person that coming to save Joey is Joey. Nobody is coming to save you. That, in addition to making them aware of the moment and who they are right now. We can be anybody we want to be this fast. Boom. Done. So it really comes down to the ability to know that and have the willpower to choose it. When I work with kids that are hooked on drugs, or they're involved in gangs, or alcoholics, or people that are addicted to sex or cookies or whatever they're addicted to, they will not change until they're ready. They will not change until they're ready. It's as simple as that. I will not work with you until you're ready. When you're ready, it's game on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna excusitis.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it back up to Mark, but the last comment I wanted to make that I really love, because we had a long, wonderful conversation at the end of last year, James, that I very much enjoyed. And I love how you bring the mindfulness in, that, the present moment is all that we have, and that at any moment we can make a new choice. We don't have to wait for the first of the year. We don't have to wait for a Monday. We don't have to wait until anything else happens. We can choose it right now. And I think for individuals, young people who are starting to go into the criminal justice system, who are being institutionalized, I had many friends who were, part of that cycle. There is this element of, in sociology, they call it labeling theory, where you begin to only be seen in that vein, and you internalize that as your identity. And the idea that each moment is a fresh start, I think, is a really liberating concept, especially for young people who are oftentimes their identity is getting crystallized as a criminal or a juvenile delinquent. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you do. And I'm so happy I got to come on with two of my favorite dudes. And
Yeah.
She's German fangirling right now.
Yeah, weißt, das ist in Deutsch. Tschüss.
I love it. I love it.
We love you, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to have you guys come on up and stay with me.
Oh, absolutely, man. Well, and I wanted to go back to the young person that you were working with and just being with in the moment, and acknowledge how powerful that is when someone who has by societal standards done something egregious and been labeled as a bad or egregious person, it begins to go into their DNA that they're bad. And they act thus afterwards. And for you to start planting those seeds of saying, hey, homie, you got a choice. All that matters is that you're right here. You have a choice to still be with me, not judging. Do you find yourself doing that a lot with your I don't want to call them kids. And are they kids? I just call them young adults in the Survivor Ranch.
14 to 17-year-old youth is my limit. Right.
Okay.
And I'd love to help, more. We got to pick a lane in order to be effective.
Yeah, we got to pick a lane.
Focus is a superpower.
Yeah.
So I focus predominantly on these teens. And why? Because I am that kid. I am that kid that lost my way at 15. So, and if we were to work with kids that are 12, they're not going to get along with the Bloods and the Crips that are 17 in our program, because they sleep together. We got programmed that they're living together for a year, and they become all wearing the cyan T-shirt, and they become part of the gang of good, rich, poor, gangbangers, good, clean kids that have messed up, for whatever reason, So to give them the tools and the awareness that they really have the ability to work on the inner game, no matter what you've done anywhere along your journey, right? And that's the key, is to shift them from, part of my language, giving a flying fuck what anyone thinks of them, right? Mm-hmm. To escape the biggest prison that we all have is the need for validation and recognition from others. When we get to a place that we can basically have this inherent joy around all the time, it's a much better place to be, because you're not seeking that external validation. You inherently know that you're a good person. You're a good person, and only good things can be said about you in regards to what you're doing and how you're living your life, except for jealousy and, all the negative stuff that's out there, whatever. People try to take you down a notch here and there, or natural disasters. So outside of that, you could totally be in complete control of your journey.
So let me ask you this. What tools are they getting from you that they're not readily being provided in just, either everyday life or other resources?
First is their rhetoric. So I work with their language. I listen clearly, and the best coaches are coaches that don't speak. They ask questions. Everybody's favorite topic is themselves. Little Joey's favorite topic is little Joey, right? So I'll ask a few key questions to allow little Joey to share his story. I'll listen for 3 key points that will have relatability to my own story. And then I'll be like, oh, hey, you did cocaine, I did cocaine. I'm working with a young 16-year-old girl that attempted suicide a couple of weeks ago. She's much better now. And the conversation was all around cocaine, because, it was part of my life for a good 12 to 13 years. And it's the devil itself, and I don't say, hey, do it or don't do it. I just say, hey, are you open to having me share my story? Once I learn a little bit more about your story. Oh, yeah. So then I'll kind of figure out what is the relatability that we have together. Then now I can build a conversation, build a friendship of know, like, and trust, right? Mm-hmm. Then I'll create tools for that specific individual that are simple, easy, and effective. Simple, can I understand it? Easy, can I do it? Effective, does it actually work? Will it work in my life? And to do it in a milestone process, crawl, walk, run, sprint, fly, light speed. I'm in light speed, right? So now the universe, I understand, loves speed. And life can manifest very, very quickly when you understand flow. right? The whole grind thing, a good friend of mine, Gary Vaynerchuk, are you familiar with him? Gary V?
Yeah.
Right? So he's all about the grind. He's about the grind and the hustle. I'm like, no, man, let's get into the flow. Flow is it's just a different level, right? It's a level up from the grind, unless you really like the grind, which I believe he does. So a few, actually about a year ago, I was at the Archangel, the first Archangel before I met you guys. And Gary Vaynerchuk, he was actually speaking and on stage, and he has this question and answer process that he does for the second half of his speech. And you can ask him anything you want. Most people get up there and they ask self-serving questions about either themselves, personally, as an expert, and or like a small business owner, etc. My website, my business, my branding. And he answers, no problem, great answers. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to donate my question to these at-risk youth. He was blown away. Got into the most amazing answer. And I was like, oh my goodness. Oh, I'm going to introduce you to this person and this person and these money people in the US and in Canada. I'm going to introduce you here and there. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the best answer ever. Thanked him, turned around, was going back to my seat. He's like, hey, dude. And I turned around. He's like, wait, put me down for the first 50,000 US. And I was like, whoa. It's kind of like, the NBA final. You're down by 2 points. You throw the ball, the whistle goes, and what? It goes in for a 3-pointer. Everyone jumps up. That was that moment for me. So later when I talked to him, I was like, why did you do that? You don't even know me. Right? And he goes, because I'm betting on the jockey, not the race. I'm betting on the jockey, not the race. Right? So I use that lineage, that line, that rhetoric with the individuals that I'm working with, whether young or old. One of the other things that he shared with me that was profound in my life was this. Fuck your wannas and your gunnas. Fuck your wannas and your gunnas. All right? And it makes sense. When we truly begin to listen to ourselves, I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Well, wannas and gunnas are way out there. Let's bring it closer. Let's bring it into the now. I am. Not even an I will. I am. Because you are doing it. If it's already in there and you're working towards it, it's not that you're not doing it. You're just picking up momentum. The spark is there. So technically, you're not lying to the world or lying to yourself. You're doing it. Just be conscious of the stuff that you say because it will manifest.
How did the kids react when you work with them and with these concepts? Are they like, yes?
Some.
Or is it a lot of resistance?
Yeah, some. It really depends how hardened of a life they led. Some kids, like myself, I came from a very strict German family, but an abundant family, just because, certain individuals come from abundance or have money doesn't mean that they don't get into trouble as well. What I found a lack of is programs for these kids, right? There's a lot of programs that are working with, low-income families, kids that don't have anything, they're coming from deplorable circumstances, but nobody was paying attention to the wealthier kids that have the same problems and sometimes bigger problems because they got deeper wallets. Mom, has this long fishing line to get them back out of the deep hole that they get themselves in. And then they go deeper and deeper and deeper until the point of being heavily addicted to drugs and or crime and or violence and or recognition or popularity or whatever it may be that's driving them. So everybody's going to have a different reaction. The one reaction that is consistent is gratitude. And it's not that, some will blatantly give me a hug or say it, but I see this little sparkle in their eye. Like, man, this guy cares. This guy really cares about me, and he doesn't even know me. Why does this guy care about me? And then as we get to know each other, and I use a lot of humor and wit and fun and really, give them a solid reflection of who they are based on who I was. And a lot of the kids that I work with, because I've had such a broad range of experiences, I'm relatable to them in some way, shape, or form. So that relatability immediately allows them to trust me in a way to at least get into the next conversation or the next question, which will allow them to open up a bit further and a bit further and a bit further to the point where we would get a check mark for the work that we do. We work with them for a year, and then another year is as long as they become a non-repeat offender, they don't mess up again, I get a success check mark after 2 years of working with a youth. So there is a lot of energy and time and work and a process that we go through, crawl, walk, run, So it doesn't happen overnight. But by the time we're finished, they want to work with us supporting other kids.
Now, I know that gratitude often comes in these little microdoses, right? Like a look in somebody's eyes. When you think about the gamut of work that you've done with youth, tell me one thing that you are most proud of, whether it be a certain moment, a certain person, a certain time. What are you most proud of in this work that you've done?
Wow. I mean, what came to mind really quickly, there was a young boy that, he was going off the rails. He was involved in drugs and crime and violence. The final straw was his girlfriend broke up with him because of the aforementioned, and he was completely devastated to the point where he was calling us, texting us, predominantly myself and his girlfriend, who wasn't answering, that he's going to kill himself. And this is just a few weeks ago. And basically, as a negotiator, while this is happening in the act, you have to tread obviously very lightly and extend the amount of time between that and that moment as long as we can, so we can figure out a plan without appearing as, a snitch or somebody that's getting in the way, or somebody that's going to harm them, or somebody that's going to, get them locked up, etc. This particular individual, by the time the ambulance got there, and the police, obviously, because the police actually gets called by the ambulance. We won't call the police, we'll call the ambulance to help the individual. Door was broken down, 9 officers and the paramedics went in, and he was literally in the process. Noose was hanging from the ceiling. So to have the ability to keep them from doing that long enough until we can get to a point where we can support that person in making better decisions in their life, and not only coming from being suicidal to now being completely in joy and giving back, it's magical, bro. And that's just one story of many. I mean, this is my life now. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I am that kid. I didn't have those opportunities when I was young. I don't want to see these kids go to jail. It's not a fun place for a young person.
Yeah. I'm just kind of get in right now in terms of if 1 second would have been off the process, we might be telling a different story right now. Wow, that's powerful, man. So let's talk about the other thing. Magic happens with the work that you're doing. Transformation happens. Joy happens. Is there anything that you need to expand and do your work even at a higher level? How can we support?
$60 million.
69 bucks?
60 million.
60 million bucks? I was like, I can give you the 69 bucks, man.
I'll do Canadian, it's fine,
Oh, then it is 69 bucks.
Yeah. It's not about the money. It's about the ability to build something magical. It's a big word of mine. When you think about magic, though, not a lot of magic actually really happens without somebody doing something or some event happening. The magician is also doing something for that magic to happen. And the key to that magic is action. Without the action of the magician, we're dead in the water. Right? So the 60 million is actually broken into 12, $5 million a ranch. I'm building 12 ranches across Canada right now for at-risk kids. There's 6 ranches for the girls, 6 for the boys. We're going Halifax region, Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, Calgary, and Vancouver. We've already got interest in Malaga, Spain, and Mumbai, India. So this is a social enterprise, for-profit, turnkey, private school that helps these kids get back on track. We're saving the government millions on healthcare, welfare, ripple effects of gun violence, dead cops, dead kids. So at the end of the day, I've dedicated my life to this. I can answer your question in a number of ways. This is my highest, most audacious goal. Anywhere close to that is going to help a lot of people. And I've basically, donated my existence and my life and my being to allow the light to shine through me from the universe and my own belief systems to guide the way. I don't even call myself a teacher. I call myself a guide. Why? What's the difference between a teacher and a guide? A teacher is someone that teaches theoretically from their little soapbox down. A guide is somebody that's in the front line saying, hey, you know, I'm walking the walk. I'm talking the walk. I'm walking the talk, right? So I'm a person that only shares stuff that has helped me personally. Yeah. Can you hear me? Maybe I'll put on my text. You can chat me your questions if you can hear me. If you can hear me, give it up to the Joy Revolution, Mr. Mark Codon. If you can hear me, thank you so much for jumping on with us today. Very grateful for you sharing this time. You know, up here in Toronto, we're 12 noon on a Monday, so I'm sure a few people other than personal development coaches and gurus are at work. So we'll have to share this with you later between 5 to 7 when most of the individuals are out and about on Facebook and other social media mediums. So we'll catch you then. And hopefully we will reconnect our voices and our souls and our spirits, eye to eye, belly to belly, virtually to virtually, from here in Toronto to wherever you guys are in the U.S. Okay. Jorge or Jorge, Emilio Laura, thank you so much, my dear friend. Appreciate your kind words.
I think we're back. Oh, wait. I think we're back.
Yeah, man.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Are we back?
We're back.
Okay, so this is rigged a little bit weird. So it sounds like I'm the voice of God right now. So I'm gonna pull it away a little bit, and let's just get to the coolest part of the conversation. And I'm gonna shut up. James, you can keep in touch with him. James K. Erdt. It's right there in the show notes. Jorge, thank you for coming. Melanie, choose joy. I love it. Now, James, this is the cool part because I'm going to shut up. So I want you to imagine in Toronto that a golden mic is descending from your ceiling right now. And it's coming to a stop in front of you. Now, this golden mic translates into every language all across the world. Everyone is listening, James. So when I flip this golden mic and shut off this shitty mic, the world is listening to what you have to say. James Erdt, your golden mic is live now.
Choose joy.
Enough said. James, I want you to hold out your hand like this. I want you to hold that mic out. Hold that mic, that golden mic. Now I want you to smash that golden mic like it's hot. Don't smash it. James Erdt, visionary, luminary, evolutionary. My man, bless you for everything that you're doing. I apologize for the audio crap out here, but I'd love to have you again, and I'd love to have you on the podcast. Let's send this out later. For those of you who are watching live or on the replay, forward this out. Interact with James. He's a busy dude doing amazing things. So thank you for taking the time.
What I would love to say.
Thing, y'all,
go ahead.
If you're feeling happy and you're living life to the biggest potential right now, what is your responsibility for changing history for the better? I'm Mark Cordone. This is James Erdt. We are out, and I'm going to go fix my audio now. Take care. See you, brother.